Hey there, and welcome back to Get Messy. I'm your host, Maddie, and today I get to connect with Jennifer Hanway, a board-certified holistic nutritionist who specializes in metabolic health and beauty nutrition with a career spanning over 19 years. She's originally from London, so you get to hear her fabulous accent, and she now resides in Boston and works both with clients one-on-one and partners with major companies like Johnson & Johnson and L'Oreal. We talk about the overwhelm most women face when seeking health and wellness advice and how it's vital to establish strong health foundations before moving on to advanced strategies. Jennifer and I chat a lot about the overwhelm most women face when seeking health and wellness advice, and we cover a lot of ground in this conversation, from individualized nutrition plans, diet customization, Botox, alcohol, combating misinformation about health and beauty on social media, skincare, fitness routines, the Instagram face phenomenon, weighted vests, strength training for women, bone density, facing your fears, and the importance of consistent basic health practices to build for long-term wellness. I've gotten to work with Jennifer before in her podcast as a project manager, and she's someone I really admire. I have a million more questions to ask her, so she'll definitely be getting back for part 2, but I appreciate how honest and authentic she was with her hot takes on everything we chatted about. Without further ado, please welcome the classy and stunningly beautiful Jennifer Hanway.
There's so many juicy questions I can't wait to touch on with you. I just did an intro for you, so people have a little bit of a taste of who you are. But for those who don't know, can you just give us Spark Notes version of a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do?
Yeah, so my name is Jennifer Hanway. I'm a board-certified holistic nutritionist. I work specifically with metabolic health and with beauty nutrition. I've been in the industry for 19 years. I'm an ex-professional dancer. As you can hear, I'm not from the US. I'm from London originally, but I've lived outside of Boston for the last 12 years. And my work is everything working from one-to-one with women to I partner with Johnson & Johnson and L'Oreal. I do a lot of work with beauty health, beauty nutrition, supplementation. And yeah, that's really where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I've been so excited to chat with you, Jenny, because obviously I've gotten to learn so much from you, from your podcast, and from working with you on your podcast and helping you bring it to life. And I know that each woman that you work with, there's obviously so much individual needs that they have that they're coming to you. And I know you work with clients of all different ages, all different backgrounds, having different goals. Are there certain themes among your clients that you feel like when women are coming to you, whether it's being in one-on-one capacity or in one of your group programs, are there a couple of themes that you see women coming to you with, that things they want to work on and improve?
Yeah, I think the biggest theme is overwhelm. Overwhelm in terms of they are busy, they're career women, family responsibilities, kids, or, sandwich generation, and overwhelm in they're not feeling right. They want help with themselves feeling better, but also overwhelmed with there is so much information out here. How do I even know where to go? Or I tried all of the things, or I dip it in and out. So I think overwhelm is a really true theme. And then within that overwhelm, we start to work on nutrition and supplements and fitness and lifestyle. But it's really like literally the first thing I'm doing with all of my clients right now. I had it with a client I was working with before, is they get on the call and they're like, and I'm like, let's take a breath, just take a breath. So I think everyone is so overwhelmed by everything right now that I would say overwhelm is the main theme before we even get into the juicy health and wellness stuff.
Oh, I mean, I relate to that so hard, Jenny. And it's something I wrote down because I'm an avid listener of your podcast. And I think what I like about you, and I love when your husband comes on too. I know we all love when he makes an appearance, but I feel like you guys offer a really good, whenever I just listened to the one about HIIT workouts, and it was funny. I was so hoping he'd be like, no, women shouldn't do HIIT workouts, because I do not like them, but I sometimes do them. I hate them so much. So I was hoping, I was like, ooh, good. He's going to be like, no, don't do it. And he gave a really good comprehensive overview of all the different ways to look at it. And I think that's what I love about your podcast is you have a point of view and an opinion, but you touch on a lot of different points of view. So it's not just like it's this one way. Everyone is individualized. And so there's a lot that could work for someone and not work for someone else. And where I get overwhelmed, and that's literally my next thing, what says I can get so overwhelmed. So it ties perfectly into what I'm sure so many of your clients face. But, I'm 32. My body's changed a lot in my early 30s. I feel like I had a big change in my early 20s, kind of mid 20s. And now there's another one that's happening in my early 30s. And so I have all these focus points of I want to focus on my fitness and improving my gym routines, toning up, improving my skin, improving my gut health, feeling beautiful, like all the things. And I'll start doing research and I will get total analysis paralysis because, like you said, there's so much information and I don't know what to focus on first. A lot of the different options are expensive. So I don't want to willy-nilly just try something if I don't even know why I'm really trying it. So I guess in this overwhelm, when people are kind of coming to you, like wanting it all, blurting all of this out to you, what is kind of that first step in helping them figure out what the process is going to be like for them, or what it is that the first point of focus should be?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. In an ideal world, it would be they go to their doctor or their healthcare practitioner and they come back with all of their labs and all of their testing. And I'm like, take a look at that. And I put together this beautiful protocol for them for nutrition and supplementation and diet and fitness and sleep and stress and all of those things. That's an ideal world. And so many times people will come to me and they'll be like, I want this, and this. And I've spoken to them the week before and I'm like, well, did we do the basic 5 things I asked you to do? No. And so I think really the foundations are so powerful, but people want all of the fancies. Now, I love the fancy stuff. I love the testing. I love the optimization, but we have to have those strong foundations first. And those foundations can look different for different people. So I just got off the call with a client and she's in perimenopause and she's wondering why she's having the hot flashes and the stress management and can't sleep and is gaining weight and all of those things. But then when we go back to basics, she's training fasted, she's not eating protein, she's getting to bed at 2 a.m., she's not managing her stress. Now, HRT, supplementation, all of the fun things are not going to help her until she gets her basics down. So I think it's understanding the power of the basics first, building those foundations, and then moving forward. Now, those foundations may look very, very different for each person depending on where they're at. But I think, I work with women in their 20s through to their 70s and drinking water. I know it sounds crazy. Drinking water, eating protein, managing our stress, lifting some weights, and eating some vegetables. Like, that sounds absolutely like everyone's like, of course, that's easy. When it comes to it and we pull apart our schedules, are we all doing that? So that's the basics for me: is protein, strength training, stress management, healthy sleep, vegetables. Get those down, then we can start talking about the fun things like specific supplements or nutrient deficiencies, how you manage your stress. Is that meditation? Is it Tai Chi? Is it getting your nails done? But we've got to get those foundational basics done first. Otherwise, all the other stuff is not going to work.
I love that, Jenny, because I think, again, that's the overwhelm as you start doing research and you're flooded with all this information and it's all contradicting what the other piece of information says. And I've heard this quote a long time ago, like, you can't build a house on sand, like it will sink. And that's exactly what I'm thinking of as you say this. Like, you have to build the foundation first, like sturdy, steady, and then we could start building the house on top of like what it'll be resting on.
But no one wants to do those things because they take time. They're hard work. They're not sexy. They're not on Instagram. I've got one client, she's great, but she'll send me, what about this supplement? What about this supplement? What about this supplement? And I'm like, well, why do you want to take it? And she's like, well, I keep seeing it on Instagram and it keeps coming up. I'm like, well, it's coming up because you're clicking on it. And also, have you been eating your protein and veggies? She's like, yeah, no. But, no one on Instagram is spending money to tell you to eat your protein and your veggies and go for a walk. So it's trying to fight a good fight against all of these companies and supplements that have a ton of marketing dollars as well.
See, I love the unsexy approach because to me, I'm lucky that I feel like I started being somewhat more mindful in my 20s. And now I'm trying to be even more mindful before I get into perimenopause and get into my late 30s and 40s. That's why I'm like, okay, I'm like chilling with it, but I'm trying to build some of those foundational pieces now before I feel so overwhelmed by not having those foundational pieces. This one woman that I work with in regards to like money and investing, she's like, I'm an unsexy investor. And I'm like, me too. I like the easy way first. So to me, I hear that and I'm like, thank God. That's actually relieving to be like, here are a couple of the staples. How can we integrate these things and then even think about the rest of it later? So for someone like me, I'm like, amen.
Exactly. I don't know anything about finances, but I know that I max out my retirements first, and then I do this, and then I do that. And then somewhere down the line might be some time to do fun, exciting investment things. So I don't know a ton about finances, but we have a financial advisor, and it's you max out your retirement, anything that has matching. You do all those boring, unsexy things, but those are the things that count. And then once you've done all of those and you've got all of those boxes ticked, then you can start having a little bit more fun. But with social media selling us quick fixes, a lot of people don't want to do the hard work.
Absolutely. They're like, oh, it's taking this, like that girl looks great. And she seems really happy. And it's on sale for $35 this month. And there's this urgency that not only the urgency for us to click to buy, but also this urgency for the results. Exactly what you're saying. Like people see that and they have this urgency of like, how do I get that as fast as possible? And to your point, a lot of really unsexy things to get there.
You can't Amazon Prime your health. But here's the thing, you can start to feel better in 2 weeks. Most of my clients start to see and feel results in 2 weeks. Now, it's not going to, they can't get 6 months of results in 2 weeks, but they can start to look and feel better in 2 weeks. So I think that we do have to hold on to that. But yeah, the foundation, the unsexy things, that is what if you start in your 20s and your 30s and your 40s, that's what's going to keep you healthy in your 60s, 70s, and 80s.
Absolutely. And you are a big proponent of how generic diets don't work.
Yeah.
Which I love because, again, it's the same idea of these things kind of being blasted, these blanket statements of this is the way, this is the thing, and all these people adopting it. So how do you help women find a diet that works for them?
Yeah. And again, I think there is an ideal approach and there is a what works for you as well. Because I could look at your lab testing and your food diary and see what you are deficient in and what you need more of and this perfect plan for you. But if you have a career, you have kids, you're running around, any of these things, you're like, I'm not going to sit and make 3 meals from scratch a day and spend an hour meditating and take 20 supplements. So I had to meet people where they're at. But I think it's more knowing that not every approach works for everybody. So let's say, for example, a big one I get is carb cycling. Okay, so carb cycling is this theory of putting carbs in around your workout or at certain times of the day. Does it have clinical validity? Absolutely. But if you are someone who is trying to lose weight and you are insulin resistant, meaning you can't use your carbohydrates for fuel, what we have to do is get you insulin sensitive first, then we can carb cycle. So it's just these little nuances that we can then start to work around. But then also if I have, someone who is having low thyroid function, I'm not going to go super low carb and super low calorie for them. So it's the basics. I call it the 5 to 4 method. So it's protein, veggies, polyphenols, probiotics, and healthy fats at every meal. Now within that, we can get super targeted, or we can just keep the basics. And then it's taking that, whether we're doing, we want to get you more insulin sensitive, we want to regulate your blood sugar, we want to improve your thyroid function, we want to help your fertility, we want to build you up post-baby, whatever that is we're working on, we can then take that framework and say, okay, let's focus on the thyroid function. We need more iron, vitamin D and B12, something like that. But then the other piece of the puzzle is, great, this is the information, this is what I want you to do. Now, how do we make that look for you in real life? If you're a woman, you're super stressed out, you have adrenal, cortisol, thyroid issues. Ideally, I want you eating before you strength train. But if the only time you can strength train in the morning is 5:30, all right, let's give you an amino acid, a creatine, and a collagen powder, and let's offset it that way. So there's kind of the science and then there's the application.
I love this, Jenny, because I think what I'm hearing, and you explain all of this too, is there's this beautiful marriage between discipline and flexibility. And I think that's the thing. I think sometimes that's what gets missed a little bit when we're flipping through Instagram or TikTok, or, my husband and I have been doing a lot of research on different things. And sometimes even the way certain websites present themselves, it's really, really projecting like this ideal, but knowing that consistency is part of it. And like, you have a life, everyone has their own unique things. And so I love your yes, there will be some things that need to be shifted. and we'll shift them one at a time to make them work and be flexible to your life and your needs, because that's the only way this is going to work.
It's the only way it's going to work. I just spoke to a client and her routine is all over the place. So if I tell her, she's going to bed at 2 a.m. in the morning. Now, if I tell her, right, from tonight, you need to go to bed at 10 o'clock, it's not going to work for her. So how do we start to maybe shift her schedule slightly? How do we start to look at things? How do we get her eating earlier in the day? If she's eating earlier in the day, does she need to meal prep? Another thing I like my clients to do is work backwards in the day. So if you want to be in bed by 11 o'clock, what time do you have to have dinner? What time, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because if you wake up in the morning and you plan your day, you're on the back foot. So trying to work backwards is really important. And just having, it doesn't have to be perfect all of the time, but just having a little bit of awareness of what works for my schedule, what do I need to forward plan, what do I need to prep, that can be really beneficial too. And then within that, there's that flexibility.
That's so smart, Jenny. I think in writing terms, if you're writing, let's say, a solo podcast episode, I have this great idea and I've got the points, and then I'm like, but wait, what's the thing at the end? And so what I love about that, they're like, no, when you have the idea, think first, where do I want this to end? And then fill in backwards. And that's exactly what you just described. And I've never actually thought about that in regards to my day or structuring a day, and why that would be so helpful. Because the plot could get lost very quickly through your day.
We can go up on tangents. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So it's such a smart way to be like, where do you want to end? Great. Now let's build backwards from that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the same long-term health journey and then short-term day-to-day. I am someone who likes to be in bed asleep by 8:30. That means that I need to start dinner at 6:30. That means I have to think about dinner before 5:30. So I then work it back. Now, it sounds like a lot, but once you start doing it, you start to get into a routine. And my thing, especially with meals and nutrition, is keeping it as simple as possible. Swapping your proteins and your veggies and your extras, but keeping it as simple as possible. People are like, how do you cook dinner every single night? I'm like, well, most of the time it's just protein, veggies, and some kind of sauce. And that sauce is usually from a jar. There's so many great clean options. But I think about that in advance. So tonight we're having chicken and roast veggies. Easy. All I needed to do was defrost the chicken breast this morning. But it's just having that little bit of awareness and working backwards. And once you start to do it, it starts to become default. So as you're having breakfast in the morning, you're like, okay, what am I having for dinner tonight? Let me get that out. Is there any prep that I need to do? And it just starts to become part of your routine.
Can I ask you, I know it's just me and my husband. We do not have any kids. And I know it's you and your husband. You have a pet. We don't.
We have two. Yeah.
Okay. So you are like a pet mom, which we don't even have that over here. Would you say you and your husband share the responsibility of cooking, or do one of you take over?
We very much share tasks, but we play to our strengths.
Okay.
So he is a food for fuel guy. I like to cook. I find it relaxing. I don't necessarily always like making the decisions. And my husband's very easygoing. So when I ask him, what would you like dinner? He's like, I don't mind. I love everything that you cook. And I'm like, just make a decision. But really, I just kind of rotate between the proteins. So we had ground beef last night. So we're having chicken breast today. And then veggies, whatever I have in the fridge. But no, I cook and he cleans up because I like cooking. I find it easy. It stresses him out a little bit. And then he does all of the cleanup. So that's how we do it.
No, I appreciate that, because I think my husband and I, we've moved so much to the last couple years, and that's something, the time management that you're describing, I feel like I've naturally started to do it because I'm typically the one who cooks. And him and I were joking about time management, and I was like, I feel like I've had to get so much better at it for exactly what you're saying. I like to go to bed early too. I'm an early bird, and so I'm like, I'll literally have to be like, okay, for dinner, am I defrosting anything? Plan it early, and then be like, okay, it's 4:30. I have about an hour and so I think I've naturally started doing that out of necessity to make it where I'm not losing my mind.
Yeah. If you're finishing your day around 5:30 and then you're like, okay, what's for dinner? That's when you're going to end up doing your Uber Eats or your DoorDash or get takeout or any of those things.
Right.
But just thinking about it, I just think about it in the morning. I'm just like, which is the protein that is on the rotation now? What veggies do I have? Let's go. Make it simple. It's the keeping it simple. When people find out what I actually eat, they're like, oh. And I feel like that's where people trip themselves up. If they try to make things too fancy, if they try to add too many ingredients, either gets overwhelming or then we've got a ton of calories and a ton of things that we don't need. If you keep it, at least once a week, we'll have ground beef, frozen cauliflower rice, and a sugar-free pasta sauce. And that's dinner. And it's 15 minutes to make. So keeping it simple.
I love it. I'm, again, simple, especially with the cooking. I like to cook too. It is my zen time where I can totally, my brain, it's like a shower to me. I can like think my thoughts better when I'm cooking in the same way. There's something that you've talked about on your podcast as well as on your Instagram, and it's about alcohol. And we live in a very alcohol fueled society, I feel like,
yeah.
where it's so much of the socialization aspect of like meeting up with friends, meeting a new friend, going out for drinks. And so I know you have stopped drinking. And I saw one of your Instagram posts recently about the propaganda I'm not falling for. And you put out there essentially that alcohol, the whole antithesis was like, it's really not great for you. And some people, because they don't want to get canceled or blasted, will kind of be like, here's a way to make it okay. And so I love your stance of just having a strong point of view, because I think alcohol is something, you know, I'm from a big family in Chicago, and Chicago is, there's like hearty food. We all eat, we all drink. It's like how we show love and come together. And so I think as I keep getting older, I'm constantly aware to my relationship with alcohol and just like questioning and being open to how I feel, why I feel a certain way, and things like that. And so I'm curious in your journey of not drinking and how you're feeling now and what you've learned about alcohol and how it's not great for us and how you're okay stating that.
Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, that's really the crux of the matter is I'll go back a little bit. So also being British, we start drinking a lot earlier and we have a very different drinking culture to the US. So here's the thing. I've never been a huge drinker. So I never say I'm sober because that just sounds like I was drunk all the time. So that's not the wording that I use. But, you know, we start drinking a lot earlier in the UK. And I think especially with women, women drink with other women. So like when I was back in the UK, I always lived just coincidentally 5 minutes down the street from my best friend. So in our 20s and our 30s, Friday evenings would be a glass of wine, a bottle of wine, go to a wine bar, etc., etc. So when I came over to the US, I actually kept doing that because it kind of made me feel connected to my friends back home, even though we're on completely different time zones. And then the reason I gave up was that I had to have a surgery to remove a benign tumor, but it was quite a big surgery. And I wanted to give myself everything that I could to recover. So I was like, okay, I know alcohol is not good for you. I'm going to take 3 months off drinking. And then on Christmas Eve of 2022, I had half a glass of champagne with my friends about 2 o'clock because I was on UK time. So it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon here. And honestly, Maddie, I had a hangover within about an hour of drinking that. And I was like, I feel absolutely terrible. So I was like, okay. I'd gotten so used to how alcohol made me feel that when I'd taken a break from it, I was like, oh, this is making me feel terrible. So I was like, okay, let's see. I'm going to do 3 months. Now, with that 3 months, I really did the research on alcohol and our health and for women and et cetera, et cetera. And it got me to the point where I was like, I can't stand here and give health advice and still drink alcohol. And I can't, as a woman in my 40s with a family history of breast cancer, as someone who gets Botox and spends a fortune on her health, then I'm going to still drink as well. It just didn't seem kind of integrous to me. So I did 3 months and I did 6 months and like the year. And then at a year, I was like, I think this is me. I think I'm done. But had I said at the beginning of that journey, giving up alcohol completely, I don't think I could have done it because it was such a part of my social life and how I relaxed. Now I'm 2.5 years down the line, and even the thought of drinking sounds horrible, but I loved a glass of Prosecco. I loved a great glass of red wine. I did really miss it for quite a long time. I'll always be honest, it wasn't easy.
Yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that, Jenny, because it's something my husband and I, we've been talking, I think, about a lot more post-COVID, because I think in COVID, my husband has never really been a big drinker unless he's like out at a party or doing something, but he's not the type to sit at home and like just be like, I want to pour myself a glass of wine. Like, not him at all. Maybe if we were together, but he might even pour it and then not even want it because it's like the thought of it more than him actually wanting it. But during COVID, when we were all at home, I think that's when drinking habits naturally increased because we didn't have the same types of responsibilities. And you said the word, I relate so much because I think alcohol is linked to two things for me: socialization, especially with my girlfriends, or relaxation. So it's either like the celebratory thing or this like, great. And I just appreciate you sharing all of that context and also sharing the difficulty or the challenge that it was.
Yeah, like the first social occasion of every type. And I have a husband who's very similar. Before I was drinking, I would get a bottle of wine and I'd drink a glass at home and I love having it with a meal. Tim, not so much. He can take it or leave it. But for me, it was the first social event. Like it was like getting through the first social event of each one. So the first Valentine's Day, the first time I went back to the UK to see my friends, that first meal every time that I didn't have a drink. And then the other thing was always, for me, it was always Friday afternoon. So I'm laughing because in COVID, for me, it was always like around 4 or 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. That's when I would open a bottle of wine. COVID, it ended up being a Thursday, and then Thursday was a Wednesday, and then Wednesday was a Tuesday. And then before I know it, it's wine 4 times a week, which might not sound a lot to some people, but for me, it was a lot more than I was drinking. So post COVID, I had to, I dialed it back as well. But then I also had to find an alternative to that ritual, because for me, it was Friday afternoon. This was usually when I'd see my friends. It's when I finish work. It's like, okay, the opening of that bottle of wine signals, I mean, I work at weekends, but just that feeling. So what I had to do was find something to replace that. So I did some non-alcoholic gin and some sugar-free tonic. And I made a ritual of making these non-alcoholic, sugar-free gin and tonics. And that was maybe a few weeks. And then I switched that to like a herbal tea. And then now I just don't do it at all. But I needed that replacement. And I think it's the same for, giving up alcohol, giving up cigarettes, giving up soda. It can be such an ingrained part of our lives that trying to go cold turkey just isn't going to work.
Well, and I think you mentioning too the ritual around it, right? It's not even just the act of, I just want to drink, or it's like, oh, I had this ritual that made me feel XYZ way and I'm craving this feeling, but my feelings linked to that opening of the wine or whatever the case may be. And similarly, as I'm trying to drink less and less, like I will have, a spindrift or like something else that has like flavor, but it feels ceremonial. It has, again, that same ritual of like, I can give myself whatever permission I'm looking for to chill or to signal to my brain. And so, yeah, that's interesting. And I was going to ask you about your husband, but it seems like you guys are kind of on the same page in regards to what you enjoy or don't enjoy about.
Yeah, I mean, he's an ex-strength and conditioning professional. He's now a professor of exercise science. So we've always been very much on this, but the wine was my thing. The wine was my thing as a hangover from being a Brit and my friends in the UK, and he would partake, but I was into wine. That was my thing. So it is much easier being with someone who's like, I don't mind if we never drink at home again, and he'll have a drink, he'll have a glass of wine or something, occasionally, but it's much easier. If he was opening a bottle of wine here, there, and everywhere, I don't think I'd be as consistent as I am.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, that would be hard. I'd be like, wait a second.
Yeah, that smells really good.
Exactly. You're just like, wait. You brought up Botox. Can we talk about Botox?
Of course we can.
I appreciate it, Jenny, because again, this is another thing. In my early 30s, it's like a hot topic and everyone seems to have an opinion on it, whatever that may mean. And I want to tell you a little bit about my Botox story first, and then I'd love to like unpack this. So I have been in the entertainment industry the majority of my life, and my mom, so sweet. She's always tried to support me as much as she possibly can. And I think part of her, with my grandma, kind of all the women in my family, they definitely pride themselves in, they want to look good. And they pride themselves in like the clothes they wear and how they present themselves. And you've seen me on meetings before where that's not the case with me.
Well, we've seen each other on meetings
before. That
is
true. Yeah. I'll be in my boffice, as we call it, my bed office. And I'm like, we're here. That is as good as it's going to be today.
Yeah, it's behind the scenes day. It's fine.
Absolutely. And so when I believe I was 21 or 22, I am a very expressive person. So some of the lines that I have were not super apparent, but they were starting to be apparent at a younger age. And my mom, very funny story, actually, she lives in a suburb of Chicago, and the guy that she goes to for Botox is the number one, I guess, like Botox, like seller or distributor outside of Beverly Hills in the United States.
Wow.
Which is shocking.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, you wouldn't think that's where it was, but good for him.
Yeah. I think everyone from all over in the Midwest kind of comes to him as the expert in that. So anyways, I went to not him himself, but someone in his office, and I've gotten Botox twice. So once when I was like 21 or 22, and then 6 months after that when I was back home visiting. And I haven't gotten it since. And I did not dislike it at all. I actually really liked it when I got it. And I think I don't even know why I didn't continue outside of, I think I was afraid to like it too much. And I think I've seen many women that I think are so beautiful, but that like it almost can become addictive a little bit. And I think we've all seen some of the horror stories too of like, I'll never get Botox again. And I think those are specific examples. And my mom and I at the time, I think that's when it started being talked about as being preventative, like to start getting it earlier. So all this to say, I'm now 32 and doing a lot more research on, okay, how do I feel now versus 22, a whole decade later? And what is it that I want to try or do for myself to feel the best? And I think Botox is always the thing that comes up of like to try it or not to try it, to do it. So if you just want to unpack a little bit about Botox, your thoughts on Botox, I'm very curious. And I think a lot of people are.
Well, I mean, I was 32 when I had Botox for the first time. How I kind of came into that world was I was the person up until the age of 32, I was the person who was using like coconut oil on my skin and only ever clean skincare and the whole thing. And that's when I met the dermatologist that I now partner with and started to work with her and started to learn more about what clean skincare actually means, et cetera, et cetera. And you think it's a big deal and then you get it and you're like, when can I have some more? And I think it just has to be every woman's decision. I'm lucky that I'm on the inside with dermatologists and beauty editors and, Botox is something that's very safe. It's been around. I'm sure people are going to comment on that, but it's been around for a very long time. It's used in a lot of medical procedures. So I had a benign tumor of the salivary gland and I had that removed. And I actually went to see a surgeon in LA, in Beverly Hills, which sounds, I was telling everybody, but because this is a whole side tangent, but because the nerves of your face run through your salivary gland, I couldn't have Botox 3 months before or 3 months afterwards. And so when I was ready for my next Botox, post-surgery, I was really, really nervous. And so I spent a lot of time speaking to my dermatologist and she was like, we use Botox post-surgery to help calm muscles, it's anti-inflammatory, et cetera, et cetera. So I am pro Botox, but it's got to be the right fit for the right person. And it's just what you want to do. And I think the other thing to know is that Botox is not skincare. Like Botox is not going to solve everything. Botox is not going to give you good skin. That is just not what it does. It just freezes muscles, or if you're doing something else, it freezes nerves. So I think I like it preventatively. I do find now that because I've been having it I'm lying completely. I wasn't 32. I was 32 when I got married. I started having Botox when I was 37. That makes a lot more sense. So I think I'm really lucky that I have really good access to really good providers. I think that's super important. I think the thing is with Botox is that it is temporary. It does wear off after 3 to 4 months. I think if anything permanent always really scares me just in case something goes wrong. So I think it's each to their own, really. I think if you are in entertainment, having a face that shows facial expressions is important. You don't have to go down the frozen look. I just think it's different for everybody, but I think it's just important to understand that Botox isn't skincare. Like it's not going to automatically give you good skin.
Which I mean is why when you were talking about alcohol, you're like, I'm, spending all this money on myself.
Right.
To take care of
myself.
Why
am I going to undo all of that?
Right, by drinking. So no, I think that's the great reminder that even this one thing is a part of a much bigger pie that all contributes to your skin, your health, everything. So I appreciate you sharing, Jenny, because I think, like you said, it has been around a long time. So I think most people either have an opinion or are kind of just like, okay, but every now and then you'll see those people that are very just intense.
Why do you have such a huge opinion on my life? And I'm sure people will probably say to me, that's really hypocritical that you're like, oh, you don't drink, but you get Botox. We've all got to make our own choices. And for me, the benefits outweigh any possible risks. I see great providers and it works for me. And I think that's got to be the thing, that it works for you. I think we're in the era of Instagram face where everyone looks the same. Everybody wants to be a Kylie Kardashian. And something really interesting happened to me. It was in COVID. And so I wasn't going back and forth to see the practitioner I normally see in New York. And so I went to see a nurse practitioner here in Boston. She's much, much younger. So she's more of like the social media generation. And I was like, what would you, chit-chatting, what would you do? And she quoted me, I think it was somewhere between $5,000 and $7,000 worth of work on my face. Now, this was back in 2020. Now, I don't even have that big a face.
Yeah. You're like, where
is it going to go? And she wanted to do all these things. And, it would kind of be this Instagram face, the big lips, the puppy cheek, the whole thing. And so I think we have gone down a little bit too much of where everybody looks the same. And this is random, but I've gone back to watching the really old episodes of Sex and the City. I love to comfort watch a show.
Oh, so my fave.
My husband doesn't get it. I'm like, But there's no stress because you know what's going to happen. But I'm rewatching the first season of Sex and the City, and their faces are everybody's so different. Everybody looks, they're all these beautiful, I hate to use the word real women, but everybody looks different. And I think these days we open up Instagram and we're just seeing that Instagram face, that you can get Botox without having that Instagram face.
I mean, even earlier seasons of every now and then, I used to detest reality TV, besides like competition shows like a Survivor. And then when we were planning our wedding, and I was like, oh, this is a lot. And because of being in film, I love watching a good TV show, but sometimes I'm thinking about the plot or how they, did production design. Like sometimes my brain can't relax. So that was my first time like really diving into reality TV. So it's like garbage. It's truly like garbage for your brain.
It really is. Yeah.
But I can like totally zone out and not think while I'm cooking or whatever. And I will say even some of the Real Housewives, if you go back to like early seasons, and a lot of time has passed now, but I just saw one of them on Instagram and I'm in an earlier season and I was like, holy crap. Like I almost didn't recognize her. And she's so beautiful. And she was probably getting some sort of Botox or some sort of like help or work done then, but it looked so, like you said, unique and natural to her. Where now I saw, a picture for whatever upcoming season and I was like, oh my God, they do kind of there's similarities and they're very unique faces.
Super sculpted nose, big lips. We're losing that uniqueness, I think. And I think sometimes that depends on the practitioner you go to. The dermatologist that I partner with, Dr. Julie Rusak, she's amazing. She's in her 40s. She's been in this for years. And for me, it's about looking like your best self. So I saw this nurse practitioner who's a lot younger, a lot less experienced. And she was like, yeah, we could spend $5,000 to $7,000. I saw Dr. Rusak and she's just like, oh, you just need a tiny bit here. That was it. So I think it's so much about who is doing whatever work that is. You have to find the right fit for you. It's like going to a hairdresser who's got like awful hair. You're not going to go to a hairdresser who's got awful hair. See a practitioner that looks the way that you want to look, or her client base, looks refreshed, looks natural, looks like their best self, and not like a carbon copy of everybody else on Instagram.
Well, and to that point, it's like the doctor you go to, the practitioner, she can understand what that version is for you, where that other nurse practitioner, it sounds like that was her ideal, or the ideal of a lot of the people that are coming into her. So even if you were to try to articulate something else, she might be able to understand, but there's still a point of view that's kind of shifting her a different direction.
Yeah. So long story short, if it works for you, great. If it doesn't work for you, that's fine as well. Botox wears off, but I would just find the best practitioner and shop around as well. Like if I'm finding a new practitioner, I ask them what they would do before I put any input in, because then that gives me a little bit of an idea of who they are. If they're like, oh, I would do this, and this, probably not. If they're like, oh, we could do, this is what I see straight away. Somewhere down the line, you might want to think about doing this. And then if they're more of the preventative, holistic approach, that's a lot more where I want to go to, and where I hope that these things are going to. But yeah, it's like you wouldn't go to a hairdresser with hair that you hate. So don't do that with your aesthetic practitioners.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That was a long tangent, but I could talk about this stuff forever. Right.
No, and that's why I'm like, I was even checking the time to be like, oh my gosh. I was like, I can literally talk to you forever, Jenny, and want to keep being respectful of your time, but I'm like, there's 8 million questions. Something I've seen recently everywhere are weighted vests for women. What are your thoughts? Because I, obviously did a lot of research, and I think I'm getting this right, where I think it's at 35 or 36, we start losing like 10% of our bone density a year as women, unless we're strength training or doing things to like help ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay. You tell me about your thoughts on weighted vest, bone density, all of it.
I actually started wearing a weighted vest in the pandemic. So I turned 40 in the pandemic. I turned 40 in 2020. And so I was very aware that I was going for a walk for an hour anyway. I'm a big walker. It's where I think it's my mental health, the whole thing. And I was like, okay, well, if I'm going for a walk anyway, and I'm worried about my bone density, what can I do for this? So I got myself a weighted vest. And so I've been doing it for years, and now it started coming into popularity. And yeah, I think it's a really great idea. As women, we do start to lose bone density. And I think what we can do to help with that is really beneficial. If you're going on a walk anyway, pop on a weighted vest. I love habits that we can habit stack. So we can do, if I'm going for a walk, I'm going to be listening to a really good podcast, usually something, business or science. and I'm going to wear my weighted vest. So yeah, I do think they're beneficial. Do I think we need to be wearing one while we're walking around the house all the time? No. Do I think that they are the absolute saving grace for our bone density? Also no. We do need to be doing strength training. We do need to be making sure we're eating a higher protein diet. We do need to be thinking about our calcium intake, whether that's coming from dairy or whether that's coming from a calcium supplement. But I do, something that kind of makes me a little bit sad in my business is that I do work with a lot of women in their 50s and 60s. And a lot of them have osteopenia or osteoporosis, osteopenia being the precursor to osteoporosis. And it's because they just did a ton of cardio and probably were on a plant-based diet or didn't eat a lot of protein in their 20s and 30s and 40s. And it's something that can be really easily avoided. So I think yes to weighted vests. They don't replace strength training. Unfortunately, nothing does. You still need to be in the gym, lifting the weights, doing the squats, the lunges, etc. But if you're someone who goes on a walk, pop on a weighted vest. It's an easy thing to do. Nothing is a magic pill.
For sure. Absolutely. Yeah. My husband, I just started looking at them and then we went, there's a park right by our new rental. And I swear 50% of the women were walking around and we started seeing it more because I think when I first brought it up, he kind of was just like, okay, like, what are you talking about? He was like, was there like a newsletter that went out to everyone in the neighborhood? I think we've seen it amplified recently, but no, I think like you said, here's like the whole pie and it's a sliver of it. It's like something that can be helpful, especially I'm a walker too. So like easy for me if I'm already going to go on a walk to like throw one on. So okay.
Or also if you're strength training at home and you don't have very heavy weights, you can just pop that on whilst you're doing your squats or your lunges. But when I first started wearing mine and talking about it on Instagram, my husband was like, you're going to have this whole army of middle-aged women wearing weighted vests. And now where I go for a walk here, like I literally would take pictures of me and these women with all of these, middle-aged women going around with their weighted vests. So yeah, I think it's a great addition, but it's not going to replace the hard work, which is the lifting the weights, the higher protein diet, and looking after your calcium intake.
Absolutely. You are so passionate about what you do, Jenny. And I think that's the cool part is not only do you have the expertise, I think it's the passion in how you talk about it that I've always really connected to and been excited to be like, I want to ask Jenny about this or what does she think about this? And so I'm curious, as someone who has so much information and has put so much of it into practice or has helped clients put it into practice, is there something that maybe you do for your health or your healthy lifestyle, but it doesn't come naturally to you? Or even if you've been consistently doing it, it's still hard to do?
Oh, working out in the gym, 100%. So I'm an ex-professional dancer. When I was dancing, I was teaching aerobics classes to pay the bills. Like I've always been a cardio class person. And so I meet my husband, and at the time he was a strength and conditioning coach for a rugby team. So he's the weights guy. So he's really the one that taught me how to be in the gym. And then since then I became a personal trainer and all of that kind of stuff. But I don't love repping through workouts in the gym. I don't love it. It's weird. Kevin will be in the gym for 2.5 hours. I'm like, what are you doing? I'm like, get in and get out. So and I say this to my clients, but it's so beneficial. I can't, just like drinking wine is so bad, I don't do it. Lifting weights is so beneficial that I can't not do it. Now, I will train twice a week at home. So I put on a really fun playlist and kind of make that more interesting. And then I go to a gym twice a week and I love the people at the gym and it's much more interesting. And there's a really cute dog. And
love the dog. I've seen him on your Instagram. I've shown my husband. I'm like, I would go to this gym just for the dog.
Like I have a little Winnie break between sets. Winnie doesn't know how famous she is. But that's how I make it work. But no, picking up weights, strength training does not come naturally to me at all.
I could not relate more. I'm a class person. So luckily this past year, I found a studio that I'm obsessed with and they do strength training classes, which I was like, godsend, like absolute godsend. And now we're not there for the summer in that same town. So luckily through learning what I've learned in some of those classes, I feel more comfortable or confident in the gym. But I'm with you. Like that, it takes me a minute to like get in and be like, okay, what's the plan? What are we doing here? I'm classes all day long, especially I'm strength training in a class. Don't even care. It's the, like you said, going to a gym and having to like decide what I am doing and getting all the weights out and doing the thing. I'm like,
see, that's another thing. You need a program before you go into the gym.
Yes.
Because if you go in there and you don't know what you're going to do and you don't have a plan and you'll faff around
Nightmare.
and you'll end up being on the Stairmaster watching Desperate Housewives or Real Housewives or anything with housewives in it, that's what's going to happen. Now, we do programming for our clients as part of my business, but even a bad program is better than no program. Peloton has strength training. Like, there's so many different ones, but it's like going grocery shopping without a list. If you go into the gym without a program or a plan of what you're going to do, that's half of the battle. Find out what you're going to do in advance.
That's exactly what happens to me, Jenny. I've been a runner. I still run, but now cardio, I'm the rarity compared to strength training. But I did my first half marathon this past March, and I'm with you. Like this, I will pull up, like you said, Peloton or like even a bunch of YouTube videos, and I'll have them in an order that I want. And if I don't do that, what am I going to do? Go run on the treadmill. Because I'm like, I don't even want to deal with it. I'm like, nope, don't even want to look over
think
there.
about it. Don't want to get the weights out. Don't want to have to put them away again. So yeah, even a bad program is better than no program.
Amen. I love that. In our last couple questions, Jenny, which I'm so sad because I literally could talk to you all day
We
long.
can do a part
and I
two.
feel like
We'll do a part two.
Okay, I was going to say absolutely done because there's so much to ask you that I'm so curious about, especially when it comes to you running your business. We'll have to do a part two more about you as a business owner.
Yeah.
This is more of a personal question because I think there's something that, to me, you're someone who you take a lot of action. You're starting your own business. You're helping a lot of people. Like you understand how to, I think, tackle some of those fears that you need to take action to make certain things happen. But I still feel like there's always some sort of fear that we're kind of battling up against, and it changes through different seasons of our life. So is there anything that you're afraid of, or it's like as you're kind of like laying your head on the pillow at night, that the thoughts that kind of keep cycling to kind of keep you restless or keep you awake in this season of life?
I've always been a jump and the rope will appear kind of person. So like I remember probably the wildest thing I've ever done in my career was I went to work. I was living in London at the time. So I had the apartment, I had the good job, I had the boyfriend, I had the whole thing. But I knew that it wasn't something. Now, I don't come from that family. I don't come from an entrepreneurial family. I come from a very, very stable, normal home life. And I'm so grateful for it. But it was just the beginning of boutique wellness. So this was back in probably like 2010 maybe. And it was just the beginning of boutique wellness. And I remember seeing this place where Demi Moore went for she went for her retreat, and it was called Amansala. And I was like, I'd like to work there. Now, I didn't speak a word of Spanish. I'd never been to Mexico. Tulum at the time was nothing. There was nothing in Tulum whatsoever. And so I sent them an email. I think I sent them an email. We had a phone call. And so I left my life in London to go and work as the bikini boot camp manager at Amansala, Tulum. Like there wasn't a phone there. If I called my parents, it was through this like walkie-talkie thing, like the middle of nowhere. And so I think ever since then, I've been like, nothing else is going to be. And it was fine. It was really interesting. I got typhoid. Like it wasn't perfect.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah, that's a whole other conversation. But I think ever since then, I will always say yes. And I'm like, I can figure it out. So I think that's where my kind of bravery with it, when Dr. Isak said, do you want to come and work with me in New York? I was like, yep. And then I learned everything about beauty nutrition. What scares me is not fulfilling my promise, I think. But I've had a couple of things happen this week which have really put me in that right direction. So I also think that I do believe in divine timing. And I believe that the door opens when you are ready. And maybe those doors haven't opened for me because I haven't been ready yet. So I think more for me, it's about not fulfilling my promise. And I'd rather fail and fulfill, my God-given talents, whatever they are, than just not try. And I will jump into things like moving to the middle of nowhere in Mexico. Like when I came over to Boston, everyone was like, oh my God, are you going to be okay? I'm like, it's a hop, skip over the pond. They speak the language and my husband has a family there. I was like, I moved to the middle of nowhere on a beach in my 20s. Like I'm good. Like I've traveled South America, I've traveled India. So I think for me, it's more about not achieving than taking any leaps.
Yeah. I am going to keep that in the back of my mind. The like leap and rope will appear because it's true. Like if we connect the dots looking back, we could see it, right? We could see when that window opened or that door opened and when it didn't, and we needed it not to at that time to keep kind of walking down the path. But we get so forward focused. Sometimes we kind of forget the resilience we already do have because of everything that we've been through to that point. So I love that visual specifically of like the rope will show up.
Like you have to, like you then have to, like, I think if we don't put ourselves on those pressures, I know personally I don't, my husband would disagree, but I don't think I'm necessarily a competitive person. Like I was a dancer growing up, but it was more like, you know, my friends were dancers. So it was all like someone would always win. That would be great. So I'm not particularly competitive. So for me to be able to push myself and put myself out of my comfort zone, I had to say yes to something that I'm not ready for. And then I've committed to it. So then I'm like, all right, now I then have to put the work. So that's how I kind of push myself forward.
Yeah, to me, in a smaller version, it's like the accountability piece. Like if I say to someone, like, or there's a deadline, you will have this in your email inbox by this deadline. Or even when I was launching the podcast at first, I was like, it's going to come out September 4th. And everyone's like, great. And I was like, now I have to do it. When I did my first season last year, because I was like, I know other people can kind of work off of almost like a treat reward system. And I'm like, that does not work for me. Me being like, once it's done, you can get a massage. I'm like, I'm going to get a massage today at 2 p.m. just because I tried to restrict that from myself.
Yeah, I'm exactly like my husband is such a like head down, get stuff done, thorough guy. Like that is his way. I need consequences if things don't get done.
I need to be, wildly embarrassed.
Something to letting someone down.
Letting someone down.
Losing professional
Absolutely.
integrity. Like, yeah, that's what I need.
Absolutely. What's the messiest thing about you, Jenny?
When I saw this question, I was like, I could come up with something really deep and meaningful, but I'm actually just going to be honest. I'm a really messy eater. And I have this. I have been for years. My friends say, like, if I go, you know, if we have a dinner party or I go to their house or something, they always know where I've sat because there's like a circle of crumbs around me. Yeah, I was going to be like something really deep and meaningful. No, I'm literally just a really messy eater.
Messy eater. I love it. So you need a dog instead of cats to help you up with that.
Exactly. Yeah. Then I would not leave any traces.
What are you excited most for next, Jenny, whether it be something personal or professional?
Yeah. It's funny that we're having this conversation today because in the last couple of weeks, there's been some real big shifts for me with what I'm doing. I've started working as part of L'Oreal's medical advisory board. So that is so interesting, you know, with my work with skin nutrition and supplementation. And I just finished writing a 150-page book proposal, which I submitted to an agent that I really want to work with. So those things are what I'm excited about right now.
Amazing. I love that so much. And I always, whenever I'm looking at your Instagram too, I'm like, I don't know what type of book you're going to write. I also hope there's a cookbook in your future because some of your recipes, I'm like, yeah.
It's part cookbook. It's about
I love
nutrition,
it.
But with that comes with a cookbook. So yes, to keep everything crossed for me.
Absolutely. I love that so much, Jenny. And where could people come hang out with you on the internet, connect with you, come get more of you?
Yeah, the best place to find me is Instagram. So at Jennifer Hanway. And then the website is www.jenniferhanway.com. But yeah, Instagram is where I am most active. I have the podcast, The Science of Stunning. So you can find that on Apple iTunes or Spotify. But yeah, Instagram is where I hang out.
Jenny, this was so much fun. We will absolutely have to do a part 2. Thank you for your time, your expertise, and I just adore you. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks, Maddie.
Thanks, Jenny. You're the real hero if you've made it this far. Thanks so much for hanging out today, and check out the show notes for any resources or cool info mentioned in today's episode, or places to follow along if you want to hang out some more. I'm rooting for you today and always. Stay messy.